Hello and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Rising Star Podcast. I am your host, Tyler Scott, one of the peer mentors for Project Rise here at Heartland Community College. For this episode, I will be giving out some encouragement before this episode begins today. So let's get started with that. This month's encouragement is even though the storm is raging all around you, it's only temporary and you will get through this. Now, for a very long list of the events and workshops that will be going online for all of September. September 4th, which is today, we have a Visualize Your Future and Dream Big from 1 until 3 p.m. in the WDC 1224 suite. If you have goals or future plans, come and join Project Rise's program assistant, Kylie, and build your vision board full of your ambitions, hopes, and dreams. Do you have a clear vision of your future, or are you still thinking about what you want? Come and put together this creative visual for a reminder of for an everyday reminder of what it will look like. September 9th is Fun in the Sun from 10 a.m. until 12 p.m. Come outside and get in touch with the outdoor environment. Karaoke on the quad, bags, and other outdoor games, and so much more will be able to be at your fingertips as we enjoy some fun in the sun. September 10th is My Plate for My Family, 12 p.m. until 1 p.m. in the WDC 1224 suite. We learn about principles for healthy nutrition with a dose of practical tips for balancing your food budget. It's an extension brought to you by the U of I. September 11th is Lifting Weights and Spirits. Maybe you need a workout partner or whatever it is. We will be working out together in the FRC from 1 until 2:30 p.m. We hope to see you there. September 12th, we are taking a Starved Rock trip from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. Starved Rock State Park is a great way to get connected with nature and enjoy the outdoors before the fall seasons arrive. Join the Project Rise staff in exploring Starved Rock State Park. We also have another My Play on September 15th and Clocking It with Project Rise on September 18th. We will have an open area in our conference room where you can come in and talk about issues in classes and just give you a safe place to talk about whatever it is that you're going through. We're doing another Lifting Spirits and Weights on September 18th as well. September 23rd is a personality deep dive. We're doing an Enneagram test, so come and learn about what motivates you and the personality traits surrounding those. We have September 24th is another My Play in My Family workshop. And September 25th is another Lifting and Spirits Weights workshop. September 26th, the last workshop of the month, is my Model Train workshop from 3 until 4 p.m. Come to the WDC 1224 and come learn about model trains and real trains with me. And kiddos, you are more than welcome to come and be a junior riser for the day. Now, with all of that being said and all of that out of the way, let's get into today's topic. One of my most favorite things about being a college student and someone who is heavily involved in my faith is getting to know people from different countries and what it's like in their culture, as well as the fact of how important it is to be an international student here in America. So many wonderful conversations I have had with these individuals, and it's incredible how much you can learn from them. However, not very many people know about the struggle of international students, so today I have asked Ashley Carrel and Gwen to come onto the podcast where they have been working with international students. Ashley Carrel is one of the success coaches here, and Gwen is in charge of the International Student Coordination Program through student engagement. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler, for that introduction. Okay, lots of applause. I am happy to be here. My name, like Tyler said, is Ashley Carrel, and I have been working with international students for many years now. My background is an ESL instructor, so I was an ESL instructor for about 15 years before my current position. So I did work in many different places in Mexico and then in Houston, Texas, working with international type students, but all different kinds of visas and things like that, but people learning English, non-native speakers. now I work as a success coach specifically for international students here at Heartland. I also work with domestic students as well, but it is a great privilege to be here at Heartland helping international students with their struggles.
That is amazing, Ashley. Thank you so much for sharing. And we're going to get into the questions for you. I'll go you and then Gwen, and then ask you guys separately. So, Ashley, share who you, oh, you did that. So, moving on to question 2. What has been the most rewarding thing about working with international students?
Sorry, I jumped the questions there, but I got really excited to share because I do love working with international students. For me, I love learning, similar to what you said, Tyler, like learning about other cultures, languages. I was a Spanish minor in college, loved studying Spanish and learning about the culture there, and lived in Mexico for a while. So that kind of just carried with me. I traveled a lot in my 20s. And now in my 30s, I haven't been able to travel as much. But what's been really fun is getting to see the world come to us here in small, normal Illinois. And so for me, working with international students from all over the world in different countries, as much as I try to help them, I am receiving just as much as I'm exposed to diversity and different beliefs, people who look like different than me, people who think different than me, have different beliefs than me, and I think that's good for all of us to be exposed to that, and it builds empathy and understanding and perspective for sure. So that's been really rewarding for me. I also have to say, sort of as a joke, but food. I've got to experience a lot of different foods over the last 20 years or so working with international students. I often get to try new foods and coffees and teas and things like that. So that's been pretty fun too.
That's amazing. It's really cool because, like, I know, like, going to Bridges and all those other organizations has been amazing. Like, to get connected with everyone, and, like, especially, like, the international students that I get connected with, like, them inviting you to their home or, like, apartment or, like, exposing you to, like, our culture through food is incredible.
Yes, the hospitality is amazing in many of these countries. They definitely outdo us in that area, for sure.
For sure. And question number 3 is: how have you seen international students struggle?
Yeah, international students have a lot of challenges that we've seen here. For me, a lot of students don't know about that the resources can be very limited for international students. I work in student success, so we are constantly connecting students to resources out in the community. However, when it comes to international students, they often are ineligible for, different types of assistance, financial aid, for example. Those things are, they're not eligible for those. So expenses can be hard. Obviously, they're coming across the world, and they have to pay for housing. They have to pay for all of their expenses here in the United States, which often can be more expensive than when where they're coming from. So financially, it can be difficult, but of course, also just being away. You have to think about being away from your culture, community, language, all the things that are familiar to you, and traveling across the world. And, there's a lot of, Gwen and I talk a lot about culture shock. I'm sure she'll talk more about that maybe too, but culture shock is a big thing that students experience when they come into U.S. and they don't know how things work. How does the system work? How do they go to the bank? How do they go to a doctor's office? How do they get us, go mail a package? Just the simplest things that we take for granted. It's all new for them, right? So those are just a few of the challenges.
Wow. It's crazy how much we don't realize, about how much stuff we do take for granted, and how things seem so simple to us, but when you see people who aren't familiar with it, it's like, oh my gosh. I have a friend who's getting to know, and he's from Zimbabwe, and he just is he's like the education system is whole different here than
definitely.
it is back in home, and he's a grad student, and he's like, oh my gosh, and he's like, this is crazy.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of things to learn, always.
So question number 4 is share a story about international student success.
Yeah, I have a lot of stories. It was hard to pick one to think through what I wanted to share, but one thing that I'm really proud of is our international student community here at Heartland. As many of you may or may not know, a lot of our student leaders are international students themselves. So our current student trustee is an international student. Our current SGA president is an international student. Many of the leaders in the organizations, student organizations, are international students. So just to see them get involved, like we just talked about, they have to overcome a lot of these challenges. They're different than everyone else, and they're able to become leaders and lead our community college really well. I'm really proud of that. And another story that came to mind, though a specific story, was the very first international student I worked with here in my new role as a success coach. She was a student from Vietnam, and she was really struggling in her classes. She was failing classes, struggling. A lot of it had language barrier. A lot of it was this culture differences of how to communicate with teachers. And she was, when I first started meeting with her, she was failing her classes. We started talking, I'm a success coach, which I meet regularly individually with students. And she started succeeding. And it wasn't all because of me by any means, but it was because she started asking questions. She used her resources, started learning how to communicate to the teachers around her and her classmates. And her GPA it went from a 0 to a 3.5 in just 2 semesters.
That's amazing.
And now she's in nursing school at ISU and doing really well. So that was just one of the first students I ever got to experience in this new role, and just seeing her grow and do good things and think about all that she had to overcome. Can you imagine doing nursing school in another language, let alone culture and all of that? So she's doing really well.
Oh my gosh, how exciting.
Yes.
Wow, that speaks volumes about just you never know what you're capable of until you try, and people doesn't matter where you're from, everyone has goals. And it's wild. Wow. That's really encouraging. And so what is one thing that you want everyone to know about international students?
Well, first of all, that they're awesome.
Yes.
They're really
100%.
great. 100%. But they offer our college such value. They add a lot of value to our community college. So they bring diversity. They bring perspective that we may not think of. If a lot of community colleges, of course, they're often from here. And so these students bring the world to us, like I said earlier, and also just the resiliency that these students have to have to keep going and to continue and to succeed in this environment is amazing, because it's really hard to put yourself in their shoes. So I'd love for people to kind of think through what they all have to go through, because they're often not showing it. They're some of the most positive people on campus. They're leading. They're doing great things, and you may think they have it easy, but they are overcoming challenges by being here every single day. And so just remembering that, and they're a great model and inspiration for the rest of us.
Yes, that's so good. And I agree 100%, because it's every single time I talk with an international student, I'm like, oh my gosh. The resilience, the determination, the everything about them is just man. And just, I could go on and on.
Yes.
But yes, thank you so much, Ashley, for your honest thoughts and everything. And it's just amazing. Thank you for the work that you do too with international students.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Well, thank you.
Yes, of course. And now we'll move to Gwen. Hello. So share who you are and what you do.
I am Gwen Lee. and I am Heartland's Associate Director for International Programs, which means that I am primarily responsible for managing the college's student and exchange visa programs in terms of like legal compliance and keeping our institutional ability to host students on those visas. And then also supporting international students with not only their visa stuff, but kind of whatever else they need. Ashley and I work together really closely. So yeah, that's what I do.
I
How-
love it. What has been the most rewarding thing about working with international students?
I mean, I don't want to kind of repeat what Ashley said too much, but obviously working with people from all over the world is pretty cool. And I think the other sort of dimension for me is I used to be an international student. So, like, I've migrated internationally a couple of times. And so, like, some of that is sort of just helping to kind of do things for our students that I needed when I was a student and may or may not have had access to. Yeah, that I think it's that, you know, I think there's a lot to be said for professions where you can kind of clearly have a sense that what you're doing is helping rather than exploiting, and that you can kind of go home and be like, okay, yeah, I made things a little bit better for someone today. And that's what I did. And that's kind of, so that I think that means a lot to me. That's kind of that reward also. And I think a lot of higher ed professionals feel that way. I don't think that's unique to me at all. But yeah, I mean, I love working with different people from different cultures, the different perspectives. I think it's really important that we have those in an educational environment. Yeah, I think, you know, and I'll get to that, I guess.
Yes, that's amazing. Wow. And it is rewarding, like when you get to help somebody. I know, like, as a peer mentor, like when you go away at the end of the day, you're like, I really made life easier for that person. It's really like encouraging, not only to you and you're like not only to you, but like to that student. And like you can go out to home at the end of the day and be like, wow, I was here where they were, and it's like you just see it and you can have so much of an impact on that person. And it's like amazing. And wow, just so good. Question number 3: Have you seen international students struggle?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Going to college is not straightforward. It's hard. It's a big deal. It's a big achievement. And when you do it in another country that's not the place where you were born and raised and understand everything, that adds a whole big extra dimension to what that experience requires from you and what it takes to kind of succeed. So, you know, without wanting to repeat what Ashley's already said, you know, obviously cost is a factor. International students pay higher tuition rates because they don't get any like US government assistance or subsidy. So they're paying more to do this. And they also are not typically allowed to work. So there's like the financial pressure is strong. Cultural adjustments, changing regulations is a thing right now that causes anxiety for international students.
Right.
And I think sort of going back to the culture piece a little bit, Ashley kind of spoke to this in terms of how doing the things that everyone else just does without thinking about it. Like, you know, Americans go to the grocery store and they know what everything looks like and they know what they're looking for. If you're not, this you know happened to me when I was new in this country. I would go to the grocery store and I don't recognize any of the packaging. I don't, even if I have a list and I know what I want, I have to give active attention to everything because I need to find it, and it's not going to look the way it did in my home country. Or the best example that I can think of in terms of what does that feel like is maybe if you go into a restaurant that you've never been in before.
Mm.
So, like, you go in and there are a lot of questions that maybe it's really like the place is set up in a way that tells you, and maybe it isn't. And if it isn't, then you're going in and it's like, okay, do I go sit down at a table? Do I wait for someone to come and take me to a table? Do I go to a counter to order food? Do I sit down and does someone come to me? Like, how does this work? Is it self-service? Are there like waiters and things? Or so when I pay, am I going to a place to pay, or is someone coming to me and taking my money on my card? Like, what are the processes? How does this restaurant work? What am I supposed to do? And essentially, when you're an international student or anyone who's, come from somewhere else, you're doing that thought process like all the time, every day. And that for probably, you're going to be doing that for somewhere in the region of a year before you really kind of have it comfortable. And that's mentally exhausting. It's because you've got to actively focus and use your conscious attention to do things that, everyone around you is just doing automatically because they're so used to it that it doesn't require any thought anymore. It's that, so I think that in and of itself is kind of just a struggle of being an international person.
Right. Wow. The restaurant analogy is so like to a T. Like that's
Everyone's had that experience,
yes,
right? Like,
yes. Like it's just like even talking with international students, like that's like literally what it's like. Like, oh my gosh. And I still can't even imagine. Like when I went to Africa, I felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Africa in March for a mission trip, and it was like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine here, like going to school here or like whatever, because I'm just like, this is wild.
Well, and it's hard sometimes even for like people who are native to that culture to explain it to you as well, because they don't think about it's just normal.
Right.
So it's kind of like, well, how does this work? And they're kind of like, well, you just do the thing, right? Like it's sort of like I've never thought about it before, and so that's definitely a thing. I think a lot of. I mean, honestly, that awareness is one of the things that I think international students can help us have.
Wow. Yes, indeed. Oh my goodness. Yes. So if you have one, share a story about international student success.
Well, I mean, broadly speaking, we are, in the last few years, we have had two. I mean, this is kind of piggybacks on what Ashley said about student leaders. We have had two international student body presidents. So far, we are currently on our first international student trustee,
Hey.
which is very cool.
That is very cool.
And that's kind of, broad strokes things. I think the success stories for me are, like, I don't want to, like, name anyone or anything like that, but it's, it goes back to that thing of feeling like you helped.
Yeah.
So every now and then I hear from a student who probably isn't even here anymore. They are at a university somewhere, or they're doing something else, and they'll reach back out and just kind of be like, hey, I'm just letting you know how I'm doing. This is what I'm up to right now. And thank you, because you helped me get here. And like, that's for me, it's kind of like, oh my God. It's, those are the kind of where you tear up in your office and you're like, oh, that's going to carry me through whatever stresses I've got for the next 6 months.
Yes.
But,
oh, so good.
But it's that, or sometimes we have students who are in crisis And this is
Yes.
true, this is not an international thing, this is just a higher ed thing, right? Where we've got students who are like, oh, they really need help. And, they're dealing with something that's much more kind of basic level than the kind of goal of like self-improvement and education and, long-term goals and things like that, where it's just like, I'm kind of in survival mode right now. What do I do? And we have limited capacity to help with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when we can, and then we get to see that student learn and grow and blossom and really just kind of take the reins and then, move on to their next step and be progressing and achieving their goals. That's just awesome to behold, where it's just like, oh, we were able to give you a shot and you took it and you ran with it and like, oh my God, look at you now.
Yes.
That I think is just, I love that. And I think that would be true no matter what student population I was working with. But that's true for international students too, y'all.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. That it's just so crazy. Like when you see just like those international students that start to succeed, and it's like you watch the like hardships they go through, and they're like, "Wow, like I get to be part of that," and I now see the fruit of like what they have went through, and it's really cool. And so, like the last question is, what do you share? Wow, sorry. What do you want everyone to know about international students?
I think probably they make us all smarter.
Good.
When you're around people from different cultural perspectives who have different ways of thinking, different ways of solving problems, even the language difference.
Yes.
When you speak, the language you speak informs and to some extent defines what you are able to think. So, like, if you think about the difference between saying, like, I broke my arm and my arm was broken, and how the intent changes in that sentence. Like in English, we say, I broke my arm. Most languages don't ascribe intent to that thing. It's like, oh, that happened by accident. So if you say, I broke my arm, they're saying, what, you broke your arm on purpose? Why would you do that? And so, like, for most languages, it would be something closer to, my arm was broken. Like, it happened. I didn't do it. And so, like, there's a million things like that. There are words, there are concepts that we don't have words for in English, that other languages do have words for. There are, and some of them are really obvious, and I'm not going to get into it right now, but I can tell you some funny ones. That stuff, we never think about it, right? It's just normal. How do you notice a word that isn't there? How do you notice an idea that isn't there? You don't, because it's not there. Until someone else who has it shows up and says, oh, what about this thing? I was talking with my wife like yesterday or the day before about why is there no word for when sunlight goes through trees and dapples on the ground and it's really beautiful. And I'm like, how does that not have a name? And it doesn't. There is no word for that in English. There's a word in Japanese. I don't remember what it is anymore. But that's the point, right? Another culture has thought of that and they've given it a name. And, those blind spots exist everywhere. And so when we put our perspectives together, we can fill them in. And we can see things that we wouldn't see otherwise. What we call common sense is typically cultural norms that we learned when we were too young to think critically. And so, like, being around people from other places with other ways of thinking help us to recognize those assumptions, question them, decide if we want to keep them or not, and if we don't, replace them with something better. And that isn't always easy, but it's definitely beneficial, and it makes us better at thinking. It makes us better at solving problems. It makes us better students. It makes us better teachers. It's exactly that's literally what education is for, right? It's for learning and getting smarter and better at doing things. International students help all of us do that.
Yes, that's so good, and that
Sorry, that was a little abstract, I know. Sorry.
No, but like I loved it. It was just like gives you something to think about. You're just like, because I have been talking with international students and they're like, we call it this in this language, and then like you see the, oh my gosh, it's so much more simpler. Like why do we have to make everything so complicated? And so yeah, so thank you so much, Gwen, for those insightful conversations, and it was just wonderful. Thank you both for the work that you do and everything. And it's amazing to just see how the impact of students is, like the impact that we as Americans can have on students is incredible. And they're just looking for friends, really, when you think about it. And just to be that resource is amazing. And so, with that being said, we will conclude today's podcast. And I hope you all just have a wonderful rest of your day and keep on rising above, mentees. And I hope you all are just having a good rest of your week and just have a wonderful start to September. And no, keep rising above.